Hey everybody, welcome back, and today is Wet n Wild Wednesday. And for those of you who do not know what Wet n Wild Wednesday is, it is just when I take a Wet n Wild palette and I build a look around it using mostly Wet n Wild products. I will sneak in other drugstore products every now and then if I don't have a substitution, but like I think I only used 2 non-Wet n Wild products today. Wet n Wild is one of those brands in the drugstore that I think has done a really good job of producing really good quality products and keeping the price point really, really affordable. I don't think they have anything over $10, which I think is pretty astounding considering how e.l.f. is getting really pricey. Who else? There's a bunch of like lower end brands that are not low end, but you know, just more affordable brands that are really starting to creep up on the price. And I think Wet n Wild has really stayed true to their original format and still putting out really good quality products at a really affordable price. So that being said, today's look is based on the Wet n Wild Not a Basic Peach palette. I haven't used this palette before. This was the first time that I used it. Now I can't open it. But I really, out of all of the new products or all the new eyeshadow palettes that came out in that first round, this is the only one that really kind of caught my eye. And I've got to say, I struggled with it a little bit today. I like the finished look, but I worked a little bit harder than I usually do with Wet n Wild eyeshadows. That being said, I really do enjoy the look. If you guys want to see how I got this look featuring the Not a Basic Peach palette, then stick around. Today we're going to start off with the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Eyeshadow Primer. I'm just going to take a little tiny dab of this just on my finger, and I'm just going to apply that from lash line to brow bone. Going into the Not a Basic Peach palette, I'm going to take my Wet n Wild Fluffy brush and just pick up this lightest transition shade right there, and I'm just going to tap it off. There is quite a bit of powderiness to these shadows. This is the first time I'm using the new formula. Not sure how I like it yet. So I'm just going to place that right down in my crease. It doesn't look very dark in the pan, but once you get it on the eye and start building it up, does have some color to it and some depth to it. Using that same brush, we're going to go into this kind of orangey browny transition type shade, just with that same brush, and we're just going to start laying that down. And I do find that you have to build this up to get the color that you want, which is fine for a lot of people. They don't want real intense color payoff right off the bat. So just know that if you're somebody who likes a lot of depth, or you're really wanting that orange color out of that shade, you're going to have to work with it and build it up just a little bit. I'm going to take my Morphe M433 brush, and we are going to go into the darker transition shade on the other side of the palette, just because I really want to start. You see quite a bit of powder comes off these, but you know, that doesn't bother me. Just heads up if that does bother. You know, if you're not a fan of a powdery eyeshadow, you're probably not going to like this too much. There's quite a bit of kick up in the pan. So I'm going to take that M433 brush and just really focus the main deposit of that color right in the outer corner, outer V, and then start bringing it across the crease and blending it up into that lighter shade. I'm going to go back in with that fluffy brush with no more product on it and just kind of soften up the edges. Taking that same M433 brush, I'm going to go into the deepest matte kind of chocolatey shade. I feel like this is a neutral brown. It can pull a little cool. I feel like it's a little cool for this palette, but it works. And I'm really going to just kind of place this right on the outer corner. Now this shade, I feel like is a little finicky. Like when I placed it, it doesn't necessarily with this fluffy brush. See, I'm kind of getting, it's not going into the creases and really blending out. So, which is fine. Again, I think this is like a $4 palette. I'm just kind of giving y'all my thoughts and opinions as I'm working with it. So what I'll do is I'll go back in with a flat brush and really make sure that my entire outer lid is covered. So I'm just working this into the crease, and once I've deposited most of the color, again, I'm going to just kind of work that color up a little bit. By the way, I like my sponge rollers today. I am rocking full on crazy cat lady. I'm just going to kind of windshield wiper motion that color into the crease, and the deeper you go, generally the tighter to the crease you want to keep it. So I thought it was me, and I thought I just wasn't applying the color right, but I don't think that's the case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Coastal Scents BRC S52 brush, which is just a flat shader brush with that deep dark brown shade on it, and I'm going to just really tap and place this on the outer third of the eye just to make sure I get the deepest, darkest opacity. I usually don't have to do this with a matte, but sometimes with eyeshadows you just, you know, every eyeshadow is different. You gotta find a way to make it work. And then I'm just gonna go back in with that M433 brush and just kind of blend it on out. Taking that same BRC S52 brush, I'm gonna go back into this shade right here, which is probably the most beautiful yet chunky shade in the palette. It's like a pinky orangey duochrome. It's a little bit of a mess and you really have to wet your brush, but I think it's really pretty on the eye. So what I'm gonna do is pack this on the brush dry. I'm gonna use my Wet n Wild Natural Finish setting spray and really wet down that brush. And then I'm gonna paint it on the inner half of my lid. So if you really wet down your brush, it really does apply beautifully. And then it kind of goes from like pinky to, I think it's the glitter in there. It's not really a duochrome. It just kind of acts like it. So depending on how the light hits it, it's pinky, orangey, goldeny. It's really pretty. So once I've got that on there, I'm going to flip my brush over to the dry side and go back into that shade. And this is just what I'd like to do with these shimmery shadows, just to get the most intense payoff and just kind of stamp that color over where I applied it wet. And then just blend it into that darker shadow. I'm gonna clean my brush off just in my cheap little color switch dupe thing. And then I'm gonna go back in and pick up this orangey shade one more time, just on that same BRC S52 brush. And what I'm gonna do is just kind of create a transition between the darker shadow and the lighter shadow. And then I'm gonna take a little bit of this transition shade and go right on top of it. I'm just using the same brush for this, guys. You don't have to make it complicated. Once I've got that shadow on there, I'm gonna pick up my M433 brush again with no more product on it and just kind of blend over top of that orangey shade so it just makes a really nice transition. I'm going to take my Real Techniques shading brush and I'm going to go into this shimmery kind of vanilla-y shade. It's got a really pretty nice sheen to it. And I am going to just place that right underneath the brow bone. I usually don't do a shimmery highlight underneath the brow bone, but it's the brightest color in the palette, so, you know, we're just going to run with it. And I'm also going to pop that right on the inner corner. Alright guys, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I don't have a liner that I love from Wet n Wild, like a black pencil liner. So I'm just going to use my Maybelline New York Long Lasting Drama Matte, and this is in Jet Black, and I'm going to tight line with this. And I'm going to try and do this while in frame. It's like a sideshow act if this actually happens. And I am going to do just a little bit of a wing today. I have literally not done a winged eyeliner in probably a year, but I was feeling like a masochist today. So that's what we're doing. And I'm going to use my Wet n Wild H2O proof liquid liner, and this is just in black. I'm going to try and stay in frame for this, guys. 2019 resolutions is learn how to do my liner, any kind of liner, while in frame. It's going to be a miracle if it happens. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Maybe that'll help. Maybe. It will also help if I went to the right eye. So I'm going to throw on some of my MegaLength Mascara, and then I am going to throw on some lashes. Now, lashes are another product that Wet n Wild has just not really come out with something that I'm liking yet. They still make those really plasticky lashes that really don't adhere to your eye very well. So I'm just going to go in with some Ardell Demi Wispies. I'm only doing a couple cheats. I think these are the only two cheats that I have for this look. And once that glue dries, I'm just going to go back over the lash line and the band with my liquid liner just to blend everything in. And I'm just going to clean up all of the fallout. We're going to start working on the face. It wasn't a whole bunch. It was mainly from that glittery shade. That's okay. For primer today, I'm going to use my Coverall Primer. This has been a favorite of mine for a while. I really liked it with the old Coverall foundation. I feel like it's got some tack to it, but not in a bad way. I just feel like this It's like a lotion pretty much, but there's some substance to it. And I'm usually pretty generous with this because it is moisturizing as well. I feel like it just does a really good job of gripping onto whatever foundation you put on your skin and just really keeping it there all day. It's really quite an underrated little primer. It's not fancy, but I think it really does the job that you want a primer to do. For foundation today, I'm gonna mix my Wet n Wild Photo Focus foundation in Rose Ivory and Nude Ivory. I just feel like these it's the best when I get the best color match when I mix them together. One is a little bit more yellow, one is a little bit more pink. I feel like when they're on their own, they're a little too much one way or the other for me. And I really like them together because I feel like I'm neutral leaning pink, but I seem to do better with a more neutral foundation color most of the time. I'm going to go in with the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Concealer, and I am in the shade Light Ivory. Again, I just wish they made slightly lighter shades. This is pretty much just matching the foundation, which is fine. This is not my favorite concealer, but it'll do in a pinch. I find that it doesn't blend in really good kind of around my inner corner where I have the most texture underneath my eyes. So I just have to work with it a little bit harder. Now for powder, which my face is a little bit lighter than my neck, but that's okay because this powder usually evens it out. I'm just going to take my Real Techniques powder brush with the Wet n Wild Photo Focus pressed powder in Light Ivory and just set everything. I do find that this powder deepens up on me nicely in a way that I like. I'm also going to take this powder with an e.l.f. small tapered brush and really just set my under eye concealer. Now that is done, we're just going to work on the lower lash line. So I'm just going to take that same Maybelline eyeliner and run it right along my lower lash line and in the waterline. I do want to connect it to the wing on the upper lash line. Now before that sets, I'm going to take my BRC S01 and I'm going to pick up a little bit of this deep dark brown shade and I'm going to smudge out the liner on the lower lash line. And there is a little bit of fallout, so just be aware. I'm going to take my BH Cosmetics pencil brush and go into this orangey brownie shade again, and we're going to blend out that deep brown shade. And just to clean it up, I'm going to take my BRC S06 and this lightest transition shade, and I'm just going to blend that out and kind of clean it up a little bit. And these kind of shades just kind of soften it up. I'm going to clean my brush off, that pencil brush in my color switch thingy. Just because I have to, I'm going to go in with this blue shade with that pencil brush. And we're just going to pop it underneath the inner portion of the lower lash line. I'm feeling this is very... I might hate this or I might love it. I can't decide. You know what? I'm going to wet it down because this is kind of a shimmery shade. I'll give it one little spritz and see what that does. And then I'm going to go back and pick some more up dry. It's a pretty blue. It kind of has a gold pop to it. So I'm just going to put that right there. I'm going to put it in the inner corner for now. And I'm going to go in and blend it in. This color is actually really interesting. It's not just a teal. It's like a teal with a gold turn to it. It's very pretty. Clean that brush off one more time. And then we're going to go back into the palette and pick up this light kind of vanilla-y highlighting shade. I'm just gonna blend that into the inner corner. Just to finish off the eyes, I'm gonna just go back in with my MegaLength Mascara. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do eyebrows with my Wet n Wild Retractable Brow Pencil in Ash Brown, which has been a big favorite of mine. It just makes it, seems to make just shaping my brows easily. I like the color. It's a little bit more cool toned. I feel like it's so hard to get a nice cool toned pencil. You guys, please don't judge. I still am not secure in my brow routine. I'm a brow amateur. They're definitely sisters and not twins. They're more like half sisters that were born like 20 years apart. Now let's move on to the rest of the face. I'm going to take my Wet n Wild Color Icon contouring palette in Caramel Toffee, and I believe this was the original one because I just liked these better. And I'm going to take this on my Sigma F23. This is the soft angled contour. I'm just going to lightly just do a little bit of contouring. I haven't really been into contouring lately. It's been more bronzing, but I thought I'd bust this product out because I really like it. I wish they'd come back with these colors. This is part of the Shea, That Girl Shea XO Sigma collab. I was so excited for her. That girl has been around forever, and she just puts work in on her channel, and it's nice to see her finally be recognized. But this brush is really, really nice for contouring and bronzing. I really enjoy it. These are the only Sigma brushes I have, and they make me want to get more because they're just so high quality, and they are more expensive. I'm more of a BH Cosmetics Coastal Scents kind of girl. I love Coastal Scents brushes. But these are really beautiful, and they have a 2-year warranty on them, which is pretty awesome. For my face powder today, I'm going to go into this trio. I love this. This was limited edition a few years ago, and I wish these would come back because they are such great, great products. But I'm just going to use my Sephora powder brush, and I'm going to go into this bronzer. And just lightly, it's very pigmented. Just kind of go over where I had my contour. You don't need a lot with this at all, and it just warms up the skin really beautifully, I think. For blush today, I'm just going to use the blush in the same little trio. I'm taking it on a BRC S25 brush. It's a really soft, shimmery blush, but it just gives the prettiest finish to the skin. It's a little pinky, but not too pinky, so it's not going to clash with the eye look. I'm going to go back in with the e.l.f. small tapered brush with this highlighter. I take that down on the apples of the cheeks and then blend it back, and then kind of create a V shape and just take it right above my brow. For lips today, I'm going to start off with the Megalast Lipstick in Rose to Flame. And yes, this is very pinky, but I'm going to go over it with my Liquid Catsuit Metallic Lipstick in Satin Sheets, which has that same kind of vibe that the lid shade has. I'm just going to spray everything down with my Wet n Wild Natural Finish Setting Spray. All right, everybody, so this is the finished look. Again, just playing around. I did struggle a little bit, but I wanted to show you my struggles. I wanted to show you just some of the kind of issues I ran into, just so you're aware and maybe you can find a way to work around them. I think any eyeshadow palette's going to have its own little quirks, and I think unless it's just a straight up bad quality palette, you can make anything work, and I definitely feel like I made this work. I really like the way the look came out. It was just took me a little bit longer to get there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Definitely let me know if you're enjoying the new Wet n Wild palettes below. I've really culled down my collection. I used to be a Wet n Wild hoarder, but this is one I think I could see myself using this one again. But let me know what you think. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. As always, have an amazing day, have a rocking week, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.